Terence Gordon Sawchuk, December 28, 1929, May 31, 1970, was a Ukrainian-Canadian professional ice hockey goaltender who played 21 seasons in the National Hockey League (NHL) for the Detroit Red Wings, Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs, Los Angeles Kings and the New York Rangers. Sawchuk was born and raised in East Kildonan, a working-class, Ukrainian section of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. He was the third of four sons and one adopted daughter of Louis Sawchuk, a tinsmith who had immigrated to Canada as a boy from Galicia, Austria-Hungary, now Ukraine, and his wife Anne, née Sawchuk, a homemaker. The second son died young from scarlet fever, and the oldest, an aspiring hockey goaltender whom Terry idolized, died suddenly of a heart attack at age 17. At age 12, Sawchuk injured his right elbow playing rugby and, not wanting to be punished by his parents, hid the injury, preventing the dislocation from properly healing. Thus, the arm was left with limited mobility and several inches shorter than the left, and bothered him for his entire athletic career. After inheriting his good friend's goalie equipment, Sawchuk began playing ice hockey in a local league and worked for a sheet metal company installing vents over bakery ovens. His goaltending talent was so evident that at age 14 a local scout for the Detroit Red Wings had him work out with the team, who later signed him to an amateur contract and sent him to play for their junior team in Galt, Ontario in 1946. Where he also finished the 11th grade but most likely did not graduate from high school. The Red Wings signed him to a professional contract in 1947, and he quickly progressed through their developmental system, winning honors as the Rookie of the Year in both the U.S. and American hockey leagues. Sawchuk also filled in for 7 games when the Detroit goalie Harry Lumley was injured in January 1950. Sawchuk showed such promise that the Red Wings traded Lumley to the Chicago Blackhawks, though he had just led the team to the 1950 Stanley Cup. Nicknamed Yuki or the Uke by his teammates because of his Ukrainian ancestry, Sawchuk led the Red Wings to 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years, winning the Calder Trophy as the top rookie, the first to win such honors in all 3 professional hockey leagues, and 3 Vezina trophies for the fewest goals allowed. He missed out the other 2 years by 1 goal. He was selected as an All-Star 5 times in his first 5 years in the NHL, had 56 shutouts, and his goals against average, GAA, remained under 2.00. In the 1951-52 playoffs, the Red Wings swept both the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, with Sawchuk surrendering 5 goals in 8 games, for a 0.625 GAA with 4 shutouts. Sawchuk was ordered by Detroit general manager Jack Adams to lose weight before the 1951-52 season, and his personality seemed to change when he dropped more than 40 pounds, becoming sullen and withdrawn. He became increasingly surly with reporters and fans, preferred doing crossword puzzles to giving interviews, and struggled for years to regain the weight. Also contributing to his moodiness and self-doubt was the pressure of playing day in and day out despite repeated injuries. There were no backup goaltenders. He frequently played through pain, and during his career he had 3 operations on his right elbow, an appendectomy, countless cuts and bruises, a broken instep, a collapsed lung, ruptured discs in his back, and severed tendons in his hand. Years of crouching in the net caused Sawchuk to walk with a permanent stoop and resulted in lordosis, swayback, which prevented him from sleeping for more than 2 hours at a time. He also received approximately 400 stitches to his face, including 3 in his right eyeball, before finally adopting a protective face mask in 1962. In 1966, Life magazine had a makeup artist apply stitches and scars to Sawchuk's face to demonstrate all of the injuries to his face over the years. The makeup artist did not have enough room for everything. The Red Wings traded Sawchuk to the Boston Bruins in June 1955 because they had a capable younger goaltender in the minor leagues, Glenn Hall, which devastated the self-critical goalie. During his second season with Boston, Sawchuk was diagnosed with mononucleosis, but returned to the team after only 2 weeks. Physically weak, playing poorly, and on the verge of a nervous breakdown, he announced his retirement in early 1957 and was labeled a quitter by team executives and several newspapers. Detroit reacquired Sawchuk by trading young forward Johnny Busick to Boston. After 7 seasons, when they had another promising young goalie, Roger Crozier, ready for promotion from the minor leagues, Detroit left Sawchuk unprotected in the 1964 intra-league waiver draft, and he was quickly claimed by the Maple Leafs. With Sawchuk sharing goaltending duties with the 40-year-old Johnny Bower, the veteran duo won the 1964-65 Vezina Trophy and led Toronto to the 1967 Stanley Cup. Left unprotected in the June 1967 expansion draft, Sawchuk was the first player selected, taken by the Los Angeles Kings, where he played 1 season before being traded back to Detroit. Sawchuk spent his final season with the New York Rangers, where he played sparingly, starting only 6 games. On February 1, 1970, in only his 4th start of the season, he recorded his 103rd and final shutout of his career by blanking the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-0. This was also his last NHL goaltender win. His last regular season start was on March 14, 1970 in a 4-7 loss to the Chicago Blackhawks. Sawchuk's last playoff start was in a 3-5 playoff quarterfinals loss to the Boston Bruins on April 9, 1970. Sawchuk appeared in his last NHL game on April 14 in the same playoff series. In Game 5, after Phil Esposito had scored at 7:59 of the third period to put Boston in the lead, Rangers coach Emile Francis, in an effort to slow down the game, replaced goalie Jay Ackerman with Sawchuk. He was in the net for less than a minute before Jay Ackerman returned and the Rangers lost the game 2-3. Boston went on to win the series 4-2. Sawchuk struggled with untreated depression, a condition that often affected his conduct. After the 1969-1970 season ended, Sawchuk and Rangers teammate Ron Stewart, both of whom had been drinking, fought over expenses for the house they rented together on Long Island, New York. Sawchuk suffered severe internal injuries during the scuffle from falling on top of Stewart's bent knee. At Long Beach Memorial Hospital, Sawchuk's gallbladder was removed and he had a second operation on his damaged and bleeding liver. The press described the incident as horseplay, and Sawchuk told the police that he accepted full responsibility for the events. At New York Hospital in Manhattan, another operation was performed on Sawchuk's bleeding liver. He never recovered and died shortly thereafter from a pulmonary embolism on May 31, 1970 at the age of 40. The last reporter to speak to him, a little over a week before his death, was Shirley Fischler, wife of Stan Fischler, who went to see him in the hospital as a visitor, not identifying herself as a reporter. Sawchuk told her the incident with Stewart was just a fluke, a complete fluke accident. Fischler described him as so pale and thin that the scars had almost disappeared from his face. A Nassau County grand jury exonerated Stewart and ruled that Sawchuk's death was accidental. Sawchuk was buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Pontiac, Michigan.